I was surrounded by a group of black men who started touching me. I was torn, not knowing whether I should cross the line, but little did I know, my husband had already made the choice for me. My name is Jennifer Miller, and I've been married for only 6 months. My husband and I met through a matchmaking service. He seemed tall and imposing, and he was quite a catch. We quickly headed down the path of no-return marriage. After we got into bed, I discovered he was a total dud. I'm 28, in the prime of my life. But I have to restrain myself every single day, until one day, my husband brought his friends home, a group of black men. My husband is 585, and each of these black men was a head taller than my husband, wearing short sleeves and showing arms that looked thick and strong. My husband, Kevin Miller, greeted them warmly and invited them to sit down. I frowned, feeling a bit resistant, and pulled him aside. Who are they? Why are you bringing random people home without telling me? Kevin Miller chuckled, slinging his arm around my shoulder with a wide grin. Honey, don't be mad, they're just friends. And we're having a little get-together at the house. Once the vibe picks up, join us for a few drinks and make them all jealous that I've got such a gorgeous wife. Hearing him compliment me, the dissatisfaction in my heart dissipated a bit. And I even felt a little smug. I have looks, I have a figure, and I have no shortage of admirers. Thinking of this, I felt a bit resentful again. It's all Kevin Miller's fault for not being clear before the wedding. Leaving me in this living widowhood, sitting down to eat made me feel somewhat uncomfortable. These guys are so inconsiderate, occupying both sides of me, and sitting so close that I can almost feel the heat radiating from them. They sat down next to me without a care, surrounding me. They may not care about appearances, but I do. Annoyed and angry, I stood up straight, wanting to go sit next to my husband. But my husband smiled and without a doubt, pressed my shoulder, making me sit back down in that chair. Honey, just sit here. Guests first, right? My husband was sitting across from me, which made me feel a little less uneasy. I picked up my chopsticks and picked at the food, eating absent-mindedly. I couldn't help but think about how happy I would be if my husband also had the strong physique of these guys. Looking down, a hand accidentally touched my thigh. I was so startled that I dropped my chopsticks, and my face flushed red. Kevin Miller looked at me with concern and asked, Honey, are you not feeling well? Why are your cheeks so flushed? I shook my head, indicating I was okay, and secretly glanced under the table. I didn't notice the strange look my husband was giving me and those black men. I moved my legs, trying to get away from the hand. But the other person got more aggressive, rubbing against me again and even slowly moving upwards. I nervously gripped my chopsticks, afraid my husband across the table would notice something was wrong. Fortunately, Kevin Miller was busy drinking and chatting enthusiastically with the black men the whole time, and didn't notice me. I felt a slight relief, then suddenly a hand was placed on my waist. I froze, afraid the person would do something outrageous. I made an excuse and went into the kitchen. I didn't come out until after dinner. My husband went to see his friends off, while I sat on the sofa, lost in thought for a long time. When Kevin Miller returned home, he thoughtfully handed me a glass of water. After saying that, he hurried into the study, which made me feel a little confused. I hadn't seen him so enthusiastic about work before. The next day, my mother-in-law came over with a basket of fresh eggs. I was about to call my husband out when she covered my mouth, put the eggs on the table, and pulled me into the room. She patted my hand and sighed meaningfully. Jennifer, tell Mom the truth. You two haven't been able to conceive after all this time. Is it because Kevin Miller, he's not up to it? My eyes widened. I never expected my usually serious mother-in-law to say something like that. I was too embarrassed to say anything. But my mother-in-law looked at me with pity. You don't have to hide it from me. Kevin Miller's father was the same way. What else could you expect from him? I just feel sorry for you, being a young woman stuck in a sexless marriage. I was awkwardly at a loss, although what she said was true. I was too embarrassed to say it out loud. After a long silence, my mother-in-law finally revealed the purpose of her visit. Jennifer, you two need to get on it. You're not getting any younger. You need to get pregnant soon, otherwise it won't be good for you or the baby in a few years. I want a child too, but Kevin Miller isn't doing his part. What can I do? I pouted, finally letting out the resentment that had been building up. It's impossible not to feel resentful. I'm not getting any younger. And it's not just my in-laws who are pushing for a grandchild. My own family wants one too. And I really love kids, which is one reason I rushed into marrying Kevin Miller, Who knew it'd have such bad luck and end up with a limp noodle? Seeing how anxious I was, my mother-in-law smiled mysteriously. I have a way to make him stand up straight. She leaned in close and whispered a secret about my husband. I recoiled in surprise, muttering involuntarily, "What? That's just a cuckold fetish." "Oh, well, it's the only way to get him going." My mother-in-law slapped her thigh, looking serious, after seeing her off. I stayed in the bedroom for a while. I suddenly remembered the black friend my husband brought home yesterday, who got handsy with me. Did he really not know? Or, like my mother-in-law said, does he have a cuckold fetish and he tacitly approved of it all? I carefully considered the clues about my husband's behavior lately. He rushed into his study right after dinner yesterday, which was very unusual. There must be something in his study. According to Kevin Miller, his study is his secret lair. He made me promise not to go in there. And I've respected his privacy. Could there really be something in there? I checked the time. Kevin Miller wouldn't be home from work for a while. I sneaked into his study. The computer inside caught my eye. It had a password. First, I entered my birthday wrong. Then I entered Kevin Miller's birthday. It opened. I didn't have time to be upset that my husband's password wasn't my birthday. I quickly opened the photo album, but it was surprisingly clean. I didn't give up and opened his hard drive, searching little by little for suspicious files. Then I saw a video driver file. I clicked the mouse, and the computer monitor revealed a grid of surveillance footage. When did we install so many cameras in the house? Why didn't Kevin Miller tell me? Most importantly, why is there one under the dining table? Honey, what are you looking at? My nerves were so frayed that even the slightest sound made me jump. I whipped around and saw Kevin Miller standing behind me with a sinister look on his face, but I wasn't scared, just filled with anger. "Kevin Miller, you planned all this, didn't you?" I was ashamed that my husband had seen such a private side of me, and even angrier that he had planned it all. He actually let other men touch me to get himself turned on. Kevin Miller hugged me and kissed my cheek as he spoke. He pushed me back into my computer chair, found the security footage from that day, and started playing it. I was blushing furiously and tried to get up, but when I looked down, I saw that Kevin Miller was getting aroused. I looked at him, surprised and doubtful. He smiled at me and said, "Honey, see how well this treatment is working." Before I could say anything else, he kissed me. "Let's work hard and see if we can hit the jackpot this time." This time was definitely better than before, but it still didn't give me that feeling. Afterward, I leaned against Kevin Miller's chest, listening to him describe what he felt. After a while, he circled back to the topic of that day. "Honey, you don't need to feel sorry for me. I don't mind you being with other guys. It's beneficial for both of us. And I don't want to see you so pent up, after all that build-up." He finally got to the point. My face turned cold, and I refused. "Come on, please understand. How about you just act with them, okay? It doesn't have to go all the way. Would that be okay?" I didn't budge. I didn't want to have anything to do with those black guys again. Kevin Miller didn't give up. "Honey, just one last time, okay? Just put on a show with them. When I'm cured, wouldn't that benefit you too?" He tugged at my arm, not letting me leave. I thought about it seriously for a moment and agreed. After all, he's my husband. I trust that he still knows where to draw the line. The agreed-upon day arrived quickly. These past few days, Kevin Miller had been as energetic as if he'd been injected with steroids, and his eyes were filled with passion when he looked at me. As if I had become his miracle cure, and me? I felt more and more uneasy. I just felt like something was wrong, but I couldn't put my finger on it. "Honey, they'll be here around 8. Kevin Miller adjusted his tie, trying to sound casual, but his hands were shaking slightly, betraying his nervousness. "Okay," I replied absent-mindedly, flipping through a magazine, my mind elsewhere. Time ticked by, and my anxiety grew. At 7, Kevin Miller took a deep breath, plastered a smile on his face, and hurried to the door. Standing outside were, as expected, those same black guys from last time. "Hey guys, come on in." Kevin Miller greeted them enthusiastically, his obsequious manner making me feel disgusted. A few black guys strolled in, chuckling, but their eyes were glued to me, making me really uncomfortable. "Honey, these are my good buddies, Tom, Jack, and Mike," Kevin Miller introduced. With a hint of boasting in his voice, I forced a smile, nodded, and that was my greeting. "Mrs. Miller, you're really beautiful." The guy named Tom shamelessly scanned me up and down. I frowned, feeling quite displeased, but I held back from lashing out. "Honey, you guys chat for a bit. "I'll go to the kitchen and prepare some food," Kevin Miller said, then dashed into the kitchen, leaving me alone to face these wolves. The atmosphere instantly became awkward. The black guys surrounded me, saying things in English I barely understood, occasionally letting out lewd laughs, which made me feel very uneasy. I tried to appear calm, wanting to find an excuse to leave, but the guy named Jack stopped me. "Mrs. Miller, don't go. We haven't had a good chat yet." He reached out, wanting to touch my face, but I quickly dodged him. "Show some respect," I said coldly, already regretting agreeing to Kevin Miller's ridiculous request. "Respect? Hey, we're Kevin Miller's invited guests. What do you say?" Jack said, giving a meaningful smile. My heart sank, and a bad feeling washed over me. Just then, Kevin Miller came out with a plate of fruit. Breaking the awkwardness, "Come on, everyone, have some fruit, drink some wine, relax a little," Kevin Miller said with a grin, as if he hadn't seen what had just happened. I glared at him, but he pretended not to notice, and started chatting with the black guys. I felt a wave of despair. Kevin Miller didn't care about my feelings at all. He was only thinking about satisfying his own sick fetish. I picked up a glass of wine, wanting to down it in one gulp, but Tom stopped me. "Mrs. Miller, don't drink so fast. Let's sip it slowly." He snatched my wine glass and handed me a brightly colored cocktail. "Try this. It tastes good." I hesitated for a moment, but still took it and took a small sip. It did taste good, sweet and sour, perfect for girls. I unconsciously drank a few more sips, but felt my head getting dizzier and dizzier. "Honey, what's wrong? Are you feeling sick?" Kevin Miller asked with feigned concern, but his eyes were filled with anticipation. I shook my head, wanting to say something, but found myself completely weak, unable to even speak. I realized I might have been drugged. "Kevin Miller, you..." I mustered all my strength, trying to grab him, but my vision went black, and I lost consciousness. When I woke up again, I found myself lying in bed, completely naked. The room was a mess, with torn clothes and scattered liquor bottles everywhere. My head was pounding, and my body felt like it had been torn apart, with waves of soreness. I struggled to get up, wanting to find Kevin Miller, but he wasn't in the room. My heart was filled with fear. I didn't know what had just happened, but I knew I had been set up by Kevin Miller. I stumbled out of the room, wanting to find Kevin Miller and demand answers, but I heard a stream of filthy language coming from the living room. I went to the living room door and, peeking through the crack, saw a scene that filled me with rage. Kevin Miller and those black guys were gathered around a computer, watching something with great interest. I looked closer, and the computer screen was showing nude photos of me. Those photos were taken after I passed out. "Ha ha ha, Kevin Miller, your wife's got a great body," Jack said with a sleazy grin. "Of course, you're looking at my woman," Kevin Miller said smugly, his tone full of boasting and pride. My heart sank. I finally understood. Kevin Miller wasn't some cuckold. He just wanted to sell me to these black guys to satisfy his twisted desires, and maybe there was an even more terrifying scheme. I couldn't take it anymore. I roared and stormed into the living room. "Kevin Miller, you animal. I'm going to kill you." I grabbed the fruit knife from the table and charged at Kevin Miller. Kevin Miller was startled and quickly dodged, accidentally knocking over the computer. The computer screen flickered and went black. "You bitch. You dare ruin my fun." Kevin Miller, enraged and embarrassed, grabbed my hair and slapped me hard across the face. My face was turned to the side by the blow, and blood trickled from the corner of my mouth. "You think I don't know? You've been wanting to mess around with these black guys for a long time," Kevin Miller said viciously, his tone full of insult and contempt. I realized then that Kevin Miller had been suspecting me all along. The reason he orchestrated all this was to pin a slut label on me, to cover up his own crimes. "Kevin Miller, you're a real animal. I was blind to marry you," I roared, using all my strength to break free from his grasp, grabbed a chair, and smashed it at him. Kevin Miller was caught off guard and hit on the head with the chair, instantly drawing blood. Seeing this, the black guys also rushed towards me. I fought back desperately, but I was outnumbered and quickly pinned to the ground. "You beasts, let me go," I screamed in despair, tears streaming down my face. Just when I thought I was done for, suddenly, there was a frantic knocking at the door. "Police, open up." Hearing the police's voices, Kevin Miller and the black guys were stunned, their faces showing panic. I felt like I had grabbed a lifeline, struggling desperately to attract the police's attention. Help! Help! They're trying to silence me." Hearing my cries, the police immediately broke down the door. Seeing the scene in the room, the police were also stunned. Kevin Miller and the black guys were disheveled and surrounding me. My body was covered in injuries, and the room was a mess, looking like a crime scene. And no, it's not like that. Let me explain. Kevin Miller frantically tried to explain, but was grabbed by the police. Save your explanations for the police station. The police arrested Kevin Miller and the black guys, and I was taken to the police station to give a statement. At the police station, I told the police everything from beginning to end. The police were shocked after hearing my story and immediately launched an investigation. After investigation, the police discovered that Kevin Miller not only had affairs and illegally detained me, but was also suspected of participating in international prostitution. It turned out that Kevin Miller and these black guys were not just friends, they were members of an international prostitution ring, and Kevin Miller was responsible for finding women in the country and then selling them to foreign buyers. I almost became his victim. What shocked me even more was that the police found a lot of my private videos and photos on Kevin Miller's computer. These were secretly taken by him as evidence to threaten and control me. I simply couldn't believe that I had married such a heartless demon. The case quickly moved into the trial phase. In court, Kevin Miller tried every possible means to deny his guilt, attempting to shift all the blame onto me, claiming that I seduced his friend and that he committed the crime in a moment of impulse. He even brought his parents to the court, where they cried and complained that I was an unchaste woman who had ruined their family's reputation. Looking at their ugly faces, I felt immense anger and disgust. I decided to remain silent no longer. I would use the facts to expose their lies and seek justice for myself. I presented the videos and photos from Kevin Miller's computer, as well as his chat logs with other members of the prostitution ring, all ironclad evidence of his crimes. Faced with the irrefutable evidence, Kevin Miller could no longer deny his guilt and had no choice but to confess. In the end, the court sentenced Kevin Miller to death with a 2-year reprieve, deprived him of his political rights for life, and confiscated all of his property. Those black individuals involved in the international prostitution ring were also sentenced to corresponding penalties, and I, finally, was cleared of all charges and received the innocence I deserved. After this ordeal, my life underwent earth-shattering changes. I not only got rid of the demon Kevin Miller, but also unexpectedly received a huge amount of compensation. I used this money to start my own company and embark on my entrepreneurial journey. With my intelligence and hard work, my company quickly achieved great success. I became a female tycoon worth hundreds of millions, realizing my life's value. More importantly, I learned a lesson from this ordeal. Becoming stronger and more confident, I was no longer the timid, submissive woman who was manipulated by others, but an independent and self-reliant queen who dared to challenge fate. Years later, I encountered Kevin Miller's parents again at a charity gala. They no longer had their original arrogance and had become very down and out. They came up to me, wanting to beg for my forgiveness, saying that they had been deceived by Kevin Miller and that was why they said those nasty things to me. I looked at them coldly, without saying a word. I will not forgive them, because they were also accomplices in hurting me. I turned and left the gala, leaving them with a proud silhouette. I knew that a new chapter in my life had begun. I refused to dwell in the shadows of the past any longer. I'm going to build a brilliant future for myself with my own two hands. Enjoy daily updates of captivating, high-quality romance novels. Thanks for subscribing. The story is complete.